Oh, it's good to be here this morning and get to spend some time with Madeline, our grandfather's joy. One of the things Joanne and I have always enjoyed is antiquing. So when we renovated her family's farmhouse and had to furnish it, we went to Gulley's Antique Mall there west of Plainfield. In search of a chest of drawer for the downstairs bedroom. We found this beautiful handmade cherry wood chest with a hidden drawer in it that I discovered later when I got it home and was looking all over it. And so we bought that. And when we got it home, I was going all through it, searching for names, and I found underneath one of the drawers the signature of the man who had built it. He'd signed his name, Thomas Newby, Newcastle, Indiana, 1832. What a wonderful discovery. And the name leapt out at me, Newby. I thought, oh, he had to have been a Quaker because that was a very common Quaker surname in that era and location. But I wasn't sure, so I called our resident expert, Tom Ham, who is with us this morning, to see if he knew anything at all about this man, and it turns out he did. Thomas Newby had been a local furniture maker who had then, as he became more successful, opened a factory to manufacture and produce furniture, and in the process had become very successful. Then had done something so inexplicably evil that he was read out of meeting or disowned. It was a tragic story, a spectacular fall from grace. He had fallen in love with a Methodist and married her. I don't know what would possess a man of Newby's character to do that, but there you go. Sometimes you think you know a person, and then they go crazy and marry a Methodist. But these things happen. Now, I've made no secret of my affection for Quakerism, but in recent messages, I've been reflecting on our less stellar moments. We've called this series, What in the World Were We Thinking? Surely one of our less thoughtful customs was our propensity for expelling those friends who married outside the Quaker faith. Their intentions were good. Friends believed confining marriage to a fellow Quaker enhanced the chances for marital happiness and success. Each person would meet with their respective meeting, who would help discern their readiness and suitability for marriage. Letters would be exchanged between the meetings involved, and hopefully a marriage would result. Today, this function is largely left to the pastor in those meetings which have pastors. But before we had pastors, it was a function of the meeting, the congregation. In some unprogrammed Quaker meetings today, it is common for couples to have what is called a meeting for clearness for the purpose of marriage. Friends no longer, I am pleased to report, disown someone for marrying outside our faith, though we do require them to buy the pastor a new car. Just throwing that out there. A few interesting historical tidbits. See, I knew Tom was going to be here, and it got me interested in Quaker history, so I've spent part of the week delving into these little arcane facts of Quakerism. In Quaker meetings in Pennsylvania from the year 1682 to 1776, 4,925 Quakers were disowned for marrying contrary to our discipline. It was far and away the most common reason for disownment, followed by 1,311 cases of persons fornicating with their fiancé, followed by 727 cases of other types of fornication. The mind reels. Never let it be said that life in a Quaker meeting was boring. Other offenses included the use of profanity, excessive debt, lying, enslaving, quarreling, fraud, and theft. 22 friends were disowned for holding public offices that entailed activity contrary to Quaker ethics. Boy, don't you wish that could happen again? While we Friends no longer forbid mixed religious marriages, it is still a common practice among many faiths, resulting in expulsion or penalty for the offenders. As for me, I stand on the side of self-regulation, not church regulation. Grown adults should be free to choose their life partners. When I began dating Joanne 42 years ago, I was counseled by our pastor against marrying her. I thanked him for his concern, but frankly, Joanne was the only woman who ever agreed to go on a second date with me, so I felt I had no choice but to marry her. And so we married to my great benefit. And to be fair, her mother advised her not to marry me. Self-regulation, choosing our relationships carefully and thoughtfully, and not just our marriage relationships, but also our friendships. When Joanne and I and the boys moved back to Danville 26 years ago now, I began bumping into people whom I had known growing up, some of whom wanted to resume our friendship, which I was happy to do. But I soon realized that some of them were still infected with the same racism, homophobia, and sexism that had poisoned our earlier lives. So I would discuss that with them, and some of them took it to heart, and others of them didn't. And it became clear to me whose friendship I wanted and whose friendship I could do without. I saw an article this past week that showed dogs, pictures of dogs and their owners, noting the similarities in their appearances. Apparently, if we have an animal, we begin to look like it after a while. So it advised us to choose our pets carefully. I think it's more likely that we start to look and think like our friends, that after a while, their mindset becomes our mindset, their virtues, our virtues, their vices, our vices. I have seen in my lifetime many marriages that checked every box in religious compatibility. Marriages that carried the church's seal of approval. But in many of those marriages, I saw women diminished and degraded, children stunted and deprived, and men misshaped by unchecked power and authority. Here is the real effect of our Quaker campaign for marital conformity, that for close to 100 years, perhaps longer, we weeded from our ranks the bravest and wisest persons. We punished friends whose only fault was love, and rewarded the docile, the compliant, the conformist. I believe this decision had such a grievous effect on Quakerism that we suffer from it still. For no great and lasting movement has ever been built on the cornerstones of compliance and coercion. This is why, should you decide to become a member of this Quaker community, if you wish to marry us, we will not require your assent to a creed or your yes to a set of beliefs. We will not insist you believe a certain thing about Jesus. We ask only that you commit yourself to your moral and ethical growth and the moral and ethical growth of this beloved community. We do not ask you to marry the right person. We ask you to be the best person you can be, the best friend, the best partner, the best parent, the best child. We ask only that you love one another and thereby fulfill the law. It was, in my estimation, a sad day in Quakerism when Thomas Newby was disowned for loving a Methodist woman. How much better it would have been if his fellow friends had affirmed his marriage, had shared his joy, and commended his decision to love. How much better it would have been for him, for Quakerism, and for the world. So friends, wherever you see love, wherever you see it, in any expression, it is your job, our task, to say yes to that, to affirm that which makes us better people, loving and caring deeply for those who aren't like us.